All right, back for more Miller time. You know the drill. Another week, another toolbox talk to deep dive into.
Always something interesting to dig into.
And, you should always read and sign the whole thing, but we'll hit some of the highlights right here.
Yeah.
So this week, I thought we could talk about safety, taking ownership.
Ah,
And actually, let's start by giving some shout outs to our top drivers. Week ending January 26th, we had Art Ortiz,
nice.
Preston Oldham,
Great job, Preston.
Hugo Vasquez, Chris Clausen, and Juan Aguilar.
Those are some safe drivers.
Big congrats to you guys. Seriously, great work out there and for setting a great example.
Yeah, absolutely.
So speaking of setting a good example, let's talk about this new Colorado hands-free law. I know everyone's buzzing about it.
Yeah, it's a big one. And, for good reason. The Toolbox talk mentioned that from 2012 to 2022, 718 people died in Colorado from crashes caused by distracted driving.
Oh, wow. That's a lot.
It's a serious issue.
Yeah, so it's definitely not something to take lightly.
Right, no messing around with this one. So basically, no touching that phone while you're driving. Doesn't matter how old you are, no texting, calling, scrolling, anything.
Not even if you're, stopped at a red light.
Nope. The only exception is if you're safely pulled over on the shoulder.
Okay, got it.
But you're totally good to use hands-free stuff, though. Bluetooth, mounted phone, all that.
Okay, so, hands-free is the key here.
Exactly.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
I actually, I saw someone get pulled over for this just the other day, so they're really enforcing it. What happens if you get caught, by the way?
Well, the first time, it's a $75 fine and 2 points on your license.
That's not good.
Yeah. And then second offense, within a year, jumps to $150. Third is $250.
So those fines add up quickly. And then the points on your license, too.
Yeah. And they do have a one-time waiver if you can prove you bought a hands-free device, but just once. After that, you're on your own.
So they're basically saying, be safe and invest in some tech while you're at it.
Right. But this isn't really new for us Miller folks, though, is it?
Right, we've had that hands-free policy for a while now.
Yeah, this just kind of reinforces how serious we are about it.
And to remind everyone, violating the hands-free rule, well, you could lose your quarterly bonus.
Mm-hmm.
Or even your job.
Yeah, it's that important.
So yeah, be extra careful out there. Okay, so let's shift gears a bit. Let's talk about this taking ownership of safety idea.
Okay, yeah. I think the big takeaway here is that, it's not just about seeing a hazard.
Right.
It's about taking that next step, taking ownership and fixing it.
I love that. And the Toolbox talk had some quotes that really drove this home and said things like, yeah, I saw him doing that. I knew something was going to happen.
Oh, yeah.
Or I knew someone was going to trip over that broken concrete at some point.
We've all been there. You see a spill and think, well, someone will get to that.
Yeah.
Or a frayed cord and think, it's probably fine.
Right. But those things can easily become big problems.
Yeah, exactly.
If they aren't taken care of.
And sometimes people hesitate to speak up. They think it's not a big deal, Or maybe they don't want to step on anyone's toes.
Yeah, you don't want to rock the boat or anything.
Right. But that mentality can really put people at risk.
For sure. So what happens, when you do report a hazard and nothing gets done about it? That management failure thing the Toolbox talk mentioned.
Yeah, that's a tough one. Yeah. That's something we all need to be aware of. If you've reported something, you need to follow up. Remind whoever's responsible. And if they still aren't taking it seriously, you might need to go higher up. Don't be afraid to go to another supervisor or someone higher up.
Yeah, you got to be your own advocate and advocate for everyone else, too. Safety first, right?
Right, always.
So I think the Toolbox talk actually asked, what is a hazard that people are likely to recognize, but just think it's not a big deal? Like they just dismiss it or think someone else will take care of it.
Yeah, it makes you think, doesn't it?
It does. I bet everyone listening has probably seen something like that at some point.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, it could be a spill no one's cleaning up or a walkway that's blocked by boxes.
Right. Anything like that.
Yeah, or even like a loose handrail. You see it, but you just assume someone else will fix it.
Yeah, you just kind of walk by.
Right.
But the point is, even those little things can become big problems if they're not addressed. So speaking of not addressing things, let's talk about that management failure idea a little more.
Okay, yeah.
So what are some actual things people can do if they've reported a hazard, but nothing's happened?
Well, first and foremost, remember to document everything.
Document.
Exactly. When you reported it.
Yeah.
How you reported it.
Yeah.
Who you reported it to.
Okay, yeah.
And what their response was or wasn't. Because if things end up, if it doesn't get resolved, having a record can really help.
Yeah, that paper trail is important sometimes.
Right. And if just reminding the person who's responsible doesn't work, then yeah, you might need to go up the ladder, talk to their supervisor or someone in safety or HR.
Yeah. And I think sometimes people are hesitant to do that. So they think, oh, am I being a nuisance? You know?
Yeah, you don't want me to bother.
Right.
Mhm.
But really, you're just being a responsible employee.
Right, exactly. You're looking out for everyone. And I mean, think about it. By speaking up, you could prevent an accident
Yeah.
or someone getting injured.
Absolutely, yeah.
So it's not about being a tattletale.
No,
It's about looking out for everybody.
exactly, yeah.
And sometimes management might genuinely not know about the issue.
Right, right.
Or it might have slipped their minds. So by bringing it up again, you're helping them to create a safer environment.
Right. A safer workplace for everyone. It's about that ownership, right?
Right.
It's not just management's responsibility or the safety teams. We're all responsible for safety at Miller.
Yeah, absolutely. We all have a part to play. And actually, speaking of ownership and responsibility, let's go back to those top drivers we talked about earlier.
Oh, yeah. Art, Preston, Hugo, Chris, and Juan.
Yeah, those guys, their commitment to safety, it's not just a coincidence.
Right.
It's a big part of why they're so successful.
Yeah, that's a great point. When you're focused on safety, you're more aware, you're thinking ahead, you're less likely to make mistakes.
All of which leads to better efficiency, better productivity, and ultimately a better track record.
So it really is a win-win then. You're being safe and you're also just better at your job.
Right, exactly. It all comes together.
Yeah, it's like being safety conscious just makes you a better driver overall.
Totally. Makes you think, right? How many other things, do we develop by focusing on safety? Things that might even help us in other areas of our lives.
Yeah, you don't always think about the connections, do you?
No, not always, but I bet it's more than we realize. And it all comes back to, creating that culture, a culture of safety at Miller, where everyone feels comfortable, feels empowered to, speak up, contribute.
For sure. It's easy to just go about your day, do your job, and assume someone else is handling all the safety stuff. But this toolbox talk really highlights how we all play a role.
Yeah, big time. And that's everyone. Drivers, warehouse staff, office people, like you said, all of us.
Well said. So as we wrap up this deep dive into the toolbox talk, any final thoughts for our listeners out there?
Just to, reiterate, this was just a quick overview. It's still important to read and sign the full toolbox talk, like always. But hopefully this got you thinking, maybe even a little inspired to be more proactive about safety.
Absolutely. Taking ownership, speaking up, and just creating that safer workplace for everyone at Miller. Thanks for joining us on this Miller Time Deep Dive, everyone.
Stay safe out there.